welcome back to day 2 here at the Pokemon Unite World Championships 2025. We are just about ready to jump into a very exciting matchup and a very spicy one as well, because Team EX, they're back on the stage and they're probably up against maybe the favorites to win the entire tournament.
Ooh, Zeta Division, the last hope for Japan here, and obviously Team EX as well, the last hope for Korea. And I think what's really spicy and interesting about this match, well, we know only one can continue because it's single elimination, but if we look back to 2024, it was Korea versus Japan in the grand finals. So we're actually not going to be able to have a repeat of that. We're going to have a completely different region in the grand finals. We'll have to see whether it ends up being Korea or Japan that ends up making it there, but we're heading straight into that pick ban phase. Team EX on the first pick position, Zeta Division in that second pick.
And I love seeing some of these bans already, Kels, with no Zora shenanigans for anybody, especially Zeta Division. This is one of their strongest Pokemon that they can play if they let it through. So we'll have to see what ends up being the priority picks for both of these teams. And for Team EX, it's going to be that first pick, Leafeon, which we've seen several teams running the Leafeon so far, and it has been a pretty solid pick, right? It's a great central laner. It can pivot into lane as well if necessary. And depending on how you want to play that Leafeon, you can pivot between both of the builds. But the main job for Leafeon, you want that burst damage. You want the delete button, and it can delete a fair few Pokemon in this game.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on whether Zeta Division have anything squishy on their side. They have a Suicune and a Blaziken along with a Buzzwole, so 3 all-rounders so far. And I feel like going with more bulkier Pokemon, knowing they're going up against a Leafeon, is actually a really great answer. But I'm actually really surprised we're seeing this Ho-Oh getting on through as well, which Team EX have decided to prioritize along with the Zarina, the highest win rate in the tournament so far, and Blissey.
I'm just trying to think. Okay, last pick Mewtwo here for Zeta Division. So big fan of the fact that they have a very big composition. There isn't really any Pokemon on their lineup aside from the Mewtwo that's going to be relatively easy pickings for a back lane diving Serena and Leafeon. For Team EX, right, do they have enough damage to sort of pierce through what Zeta Division have? Because not only do they run a lineup with naturally tanky Pokemon, but they're being healed by a Clefable, one of the strongest healers in the entire game.
Yeah, and especially when you do have those 3 bulkier Pokemon surrounding that Moonlight. We'll have to see how that ends up faring out and whether they're able to overcome this first pick Leafeon. But final preparations are underway as we are adjusting these items there. I guess we saw Mew in that previous set that we watched. We talked about this great utility, the ability to go and switch those maneuvers, and looks like Homie has decided to pop on that experience share. So something we've seen on attackers time and time again, especially because they have a Ho-Oh. They're going in for this damage Ho-Oh instead. So that little switcheroo, what do you think about that?
Personally, I'm not really a huge fan of the damage Ho-Oh. Like, there are definitely situations where damage Ho-Oh can really thrive. I don't know about damage Ho-Oh into this lineup supported by Clefable. I kind of feel like they have enough sustain and enough tank to kind of out heal and survive the damage output coming out from the Ho-Oh. But it's not just the Ho-Oh that's doing the damage. You've got the Leafeon that's going to come in hopefully with the finishing blow. You also have the Serena that should be able to dish out some fair damage as well. So I really think it's going to be that combined effort of teammates as to whether they can finish off those elims or if it's going to be them just being brick walled by that Clefable. We do have one knockout though in the game so far. We saw the poor little Chansey being eliminated in that top lane because things are not looking so great up here, it looks like. Buzzwole, as we typically see in its matches, a big bully in this lane.
No, I'll have to see if that slow burn is going to be enough to handle those muscles, but as we mentioned, the Clefable with the Moonlight can be quite impactful. Going into these team fights, one thing Team EX need to prioritize is also getting their Blissey online, but it looks like it's going to be a 3v4 down in this bottom half with Zeta Division outnumbering Team EX, and they are shredding on through.
Ooh, and they got some big eliminations there as well, both on the Leafeon and on the unevolved Serena, which is huge because the thing with Serena the longer you delay its evolution, the less impactful this Pokemon can be during that mid-game. So I love this aggression coming up from Zeta Division because they do realize how important this Pokemon will be for Team X as we transition from the early game into that mid-game situation. But for now, we're just going to continue grabbing some experience on some of these supports. Clefable able to slip one out of there in that bottom lane as it was dropping quite low. But are we going to be seeing another big push in that bottom lane here for Zeta Division? Because they have 4 Pokemon grouped up and objectives they will be spawning very, very shortly. What is the priority here for Zeta Division?
Well, it looks like they are prioritizing this wild Pokemon experience in that central area. So Team EX going to take that opportunity to dunk in this Aeos energy, not only in that bottom half, but in that top half as well. But it looks like the push is on as it's 5v3 up here, and whether Zeta Division are able to take down this tank of a Ho-Oh who's just taken a beating. But I mean, the pad is there, so Team EX, they are still left standing.
They're still left standing, and thankfully they had enough sustain on the Serena to survive that initial onslaught, because I think if it was any other Pokemon, that should have been a knock-and here. Komi, though, it was being jumped on by Rom, but Rom with the basic attacks, wanting to finish off that Mew, and will get it. And now we do have the Clefable sticking around here, ready to provide those heals with Pistachio, wanting to go back into that lane. Garam is there as well to provide that support, and luckily for that, Leafeon will be able to escape. Thinking about turning around, but we have a Blaziken diving in the back lines as well. Vitopo charging the overheats, hoping to dish out that really big hit if it manages to get the connection. But they back up. Zeta will score some more points, and unfortunately for Team EX, they're not quite ready yet to really threaten Zeta.
Oh, they might not be threatening Zeta down in this bottom half, but I feel like those little dunks up top are threatening up there. But we do have that Registeel down on the field now.
It's a big one.
3v3 currently. I don't know whether Team EX have the burn, but it looks like they're actually going to just leash this Registeel. And once again, prioritize this wild Pokemon, hoping for an isolation. Mysterio does end up getting stunned, but is able to get on out of that and not get caught out.
I love how Vitopo is playing so far forward for the team because he's constantly threatening the opponents with those overheats. And if one big one does land, you know that Tomi, he's going to be there to try and go for the catch. But it looks like Suicune was caught up there and unfortunately was locked down. But down bottom though, there's Registeel very low. Solar Beam a little bit too early, but the Blaziken locks it in there for Zeta Division. So they will get the attack boost. And the Team EX, they are...
I do. On hand, but Team EX, they are currently leading 150 to 78 points as we are almost at that halfway mark.
We're almost at the halfway mark, and you know, Team EX, even though they're not the ones really in the driver's seat for a lot of these plays, they are keeping up in levels. And I think if you're Zeta Division, you have to be very concerned about the state of the game, because with a Serena on the map and how dominating this Pokemon can be, you can't really just let the Serena play whatever game it wants. And so here we go, Zeta Division, again, deciding when this fight is going to happen, but unfortunately, no successful connections yet. It's going to come up to that Buzz Ball. Oh, the beautiful pushback though. Now it's going to be Zeta Division having to back out themselves. EX doing a fantastic job just zoning out and delaying Zeta.
I really feel it's a bit of a stalemate between these two teams. A very much back and forth down in this bottom half. Both those T1s are standing, but there we go. Looks like Team EX are going in for the dive, being able to take down that Mewtwo. Why? Electro Ball does end up connecting with Tommy on the Buzzball, but they end up slamming on back, taking out the Blissey, and here comes the revival from Ho-Oh to go and bring back their team. Mewtwo also using Unite move to go and get a good stun, but once again, it's a stalemate. Nobody really comes out on top just yet.
They might not come out on top, but I have to say for Team EX, they are very happy happy with the levels they got out of that. They now have 2 level 11s and they have 12 on that Serena, but Zeta, they are still trailing behind in that experience. And so just because of that level differential, this might be where Team EX are going to tilt this game in their favor. Now with the Reggie Steal buff as well, this is an attack buff. Zeta Division need to get out of there. They can try and delay, but there's a very good chance while they're delaying, they could get knocked out. Thankfully, it's just going to be that tier 1 goal zone that drops, but things are looking to be going all according to plan here for Team EX. And Zeta, I don't know how, but things are starting to collapse.
Well, the thing is, we always know that it isn't over until that big green dragon ends up spawning. But firstly, they need to try and deal with each other. Buzzwell ends up getting taken down once again as Vitopo is trying to get a pick with their Blaze Kick. Future coming out from you to go and push them back. And Serum is doing such a good job with this slow burn to go and bring out the damage and keep Zeta Division at bay.
I have to say the light screen that came out from the Mew was a major reason as to why they're doing so well in this fight. Tomi has finally come back, but at what cost? Was he a little bit too late? They do manage to pick up 2 knockouts in the process. Serena, though, wanting to go into the backlines, caught out by this Buzzball now, having to match up and keep up with its teammates. Tomato, though, on that Suicune, thankfully hides in a bush and will teleport back home. Things are looking a little bit scary there. Team EX may be overstaying a little bit too long. And because of that, they've given away some big experience away to key Pokemon on Zeta Division. So the game is equalized once more.
Yeah, well, if we have a look at the levels currently, we have 2 level 13s on the side of Zeta Division. Team EX have just ticked on over to a level 14 Zarina and a level 13 Leafeon. But really, it's going to come down to this final stretch fight. Regieleki does end up crashing up into that tier 2 pad, but Zeta Division, they're not fussed. They want to make sure that they're here and Team EX cannot go in for the win.
And unfortunately for Zeta, because they're behind in points, they have to be the ones to either force the Rayquaza fight or hopefully wipe Team EX. But this Ray, it's a major objective, and you can see Vitopo, he is slowly chipping away. And interesting play for Zeta, they're trying to force Team EX to fight into them, not the other way around. And then look at this Ho-Oh flying in the backlines, going for that burn. They can't quite catch out this burn. Serena, though, coming in to try and catch out the supports. The Buzzball is there, though, to prevent Serena from taking over the game. The Solar Beam, though, slowly chipping away at Zeta Division. The game's not over. We've still got a minute 30 to go. They use the Leafeon Unite as well. The Buzzball almost going down, but isn't quite knocked out. They will get the Leafeon in that process. 4 versus 5 now in the backline. They still have Vitopo on that Blaziken ready to go. And Team EX, the revive comes in from the Ho-Oh, but has it come a little bit too late? I think it has, Kels.
Oh, and now the rip is on for Zeta Division, considering 2 members of Team EX are down. The thing is, they do have to be wary of this Ho-Oh and Blissey, who are sticking up in this top half. An egg could end it all here for Zeta Division, but wait, here comes Tomi, the Mew, to get the surf and try and push back Tomi, but they're able to dodge that. 45 seconds left on the clock. Rayquaza below a quarter HP. They're just waiting for this timing, making sure to deal with Team EX first, and it ends up being Tomato on the Suicune to get the secure, and now this is Zeta Division's chance to catch up in points.
And they should be able to as well. They have their full roster ready to score those points. And for EX, they only had 3 players, and 2 of them just got knocked out. The Ho-Oh has just come back into the game. And Zeta Division, they managed to hang in through this match, even though there was a Ho-Oh ready to come in with the revive. They timed the fight perfectly to the point where Team EX, because they lost so many players, things were looking a little bit dicey. They were kind of grouped up, and that's what Zeta Division want, especially with that Suicune. The multi-man freezers coming in clutch.
And there we go. First game win for Zeta Division, representing Japan. Thing is, it isn't over just yet because it is a best of 3 set after all, but that is definitely got to feel very, very good for them. I mean, one thing I want to point out as we're getting these highlights prepared, the restraint during that Rayquaza fight from both of those teams. Didn't use those Unite moves, waited for the perfect opportunity. Now I feel like Team EX, the Ho-Oh, ended up diving in without much backup there, and I think it was a great move from Zeta Division to try and zone that one out. I mean, obviously, Ho-Oh did end up making it back in and getting the revival, but Zeta Division, they seem to just collapse on the right members at the right time.
And not just that, right? Like when the revive also kicks in, you know where these Pokemon are going to be. And there are certain situations, I think in the case of Zeta Division, this did apply to them. If you know where players are going to be reviving, you know where to land your moves.
Yeah.
You know where to land your attack.
Yes.
So it's not really going to be much of a surprise once the revives do kick in. And so just look at that, right? They immediately collapsed on both the Serena and the Leafeon as soon as that Leafeon came back into the game. So, you know, as amazing as Ho-Oh's Unite is, sometimes I do feel like it's a bit of a trap Unite if you try to keep it for those clutch moments where you're in the middle of the team fight and you're trying to go for that 2 to 3 player revive. Sometimes those revives are how you lose games. Sometimes it really pays off to go for the single player revive that might be a little bit further away, but at least you still equalize that game with 5 versus 5 team fights.
I guess that's the thing. There is an answer to each of the Pokemon in the roster, but we do need to highlight Rom from